Welcome back to the frog bath. It's leaf drop season, big time. Crazy. So we got to clear out everything floating, and step one's the intake bay. Got to clear all this stuff out and get all the water hyacinth out. One of my favorite things is watching all these leaves get sucked in. But you can see how low the water is in my intake bay. I topped this thing up just last week, so that means I got some kind of seeping leak in my liner. We'll try to take a look at it around the bog. Let's see what we got. Hello, little friend in my bog. Hey, Bruin, get out of here. Oh, boy. Yeah, he didn't get him. While our furry friend continues to search for the frog, which is long gone, we are going to check on the edge. Now, it's possible to have a leak anywhere in your liner, but it's pretty unlikely. These plants going right along the edge are prime suspects for reasons for a wicking leak. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start pulling these plants out and pulling these rocks back, and we should see what's going on behind. So we'll start over here. Yeah, it looks pretty dry. Good. So there was some bittersweet here at the edge. Take a look at that root mass in the bog filter. Wow, that was right on the edge. There is a fold. Do we have a winner? All right, our water's all cloudy now, but for the most part, everything's cleared out. How do we know where to look? How do we know it was probably up around the intake bay and not, you know, a hole on the bottom right here or somewhere? And the way that you know is because the hole has to be, now we don't keep losing water. It goes down to this level about once a week and it'll stay here if I let it. If I don't fill it up, it'll just stay here. So the hole or the seeping leak can't be lower than this water level. And as we fill this pond, the water level in the bog is going to go up. And so we're going to fill it now and we're going to watch and we're going to see how we do on that edge that we've just fixed and where the water rises to. And if you watched any of our other videos on intake bays, garden ponds, and leaf drop time, you know that the deeper the water in your intake bay, the more volume it's going to have, because these leaves will stack up in there. So what we want as leaf drop really starts happening this next couple weeks is we want to have the water as deep as it can be, and we want to have the top as clear as it can be. All right, so as it's filled, we've identified the spot in the folds. There are some rocks and some big plants here that we pulled out earlier. And you see this fold, there's obviously plenty of extra liner here, right? So you wouldn't think that this would be a spot that leaks. But watch this fold. Now, even though there's plenty of space, when I lay this down, see how the water immediately starts filling up in here? And that's because this and this are technically all connected, right, inside this fold. And so if I put a rock over here that's sitting on this liner, all this water is going to weep out. And if this starts going, just a little gets pressed down, see that? That is flowing. Just as much as my waterfall over there is flowing and that overflow is flowing, this is flowing, and that's emptying my pond. So that's how these wicking leaks work. So we want to make sure this liner is folded up, completely upright, right? So that this isn't happening. We can get rocks behind it and everything like that. And keep in mind, this ran without an issue for over 2 years. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to fold this up and I'll show you how this fold works. We're not going to cut this extra liner. We're just going to fold it up so that that fold stays upright and doesn't lay down when we put the rocks. So let's do that. The first thing we do is we fold all that excess back. So now we have a nice, clean, high seam here. And remember, this is the inside part. We don't need to worry about this leaking. This part doesn't leak. This part leaks because this part is connected to the water, right? So we're going to keep that up. So now this fold is good. We're going to bunch all this stuff back here up and fold it up really tight. And we're going to make sure that this part of the liner stays up because this is where the leak comes from. Okay, this is all rolled up, and the part where the leak comes from is still straight up. Now we're going to start pushing it tight, but the whole time we do that, we're going to make sure that this fold, the in part here, this part that's connected to the water, not we don't care about this, that this is going to stay upright, and we're going to be able to put some rocks on either side to make sure it stays that way. Last thing I want to point out on these leaks, that's the low side of the bog, right? So we're tight on liner and it really is painful. Over here, this liner can be on the ground with a rock on it, and I don't ever really have to worry about that weeping leak. And the reason is that the water level of this pond is almost to the very top before it starts overflowing out of the low point of the intake bay. That over there is already near the top. The water will never, ever get high enough to fill in this area. So just because your liner is laying down and there's a rock on it, that does not mean it's going to weep. It needs to have all the right conditions to be a problem. And if I had considered that properly while I was building this pond, I would have rotated this liner slightly so that all my extra liner was not on the high side, but was instead right here on the low side. Instead, I have lots of extra liner there, and I have lots of extra liner there, which is sort of the opposite of what you want. So think about that when you're building your pond. Don't make a mistake like I did.